This is going to be a video comparison between the USP Tactical in 45 and the Mark 23 SOCOM. They have both been safety checked, but just to show you, they are indeed empty. These pistols have similar magazines, but they're not entirely identical. The Mark 23 has a step right here, which is cut out so that it will fit inside of the Mark 23, whereas the standard USP model will not lock in place due to the lack of the cutout. So what a lot of people have done is they have changed the floor plate to the Mark 23 SOCOM model, which is what I did, making it interchangeable between both guns. I just put 200 rounds through the USP mag with the Mark 23 floor plate, and it worked just fine in the Mark 23. And as you can see, still works just fine in the USP, but now it also has the capability to work in the Mark 23. The Mark 23 has a pretty decent single action trigger. Not too much creep. I think it's a little bit better than the USP actually. But the double action is very heavy, whereas the double action on the USP is fairly light, but the trigger has much more creep. The USP and the Mark 23 are both equipped with a safety and a decocker. The USP has a slightly more intuitive one in my opinion, because it can be put on safe while in single action, as well as double action, whereas the Mark 23 cannot. Not that you really need it, but it's just nice to have an option. The decockers on both of these guns are different. The USP can be engaged on safe when it's in double action. The Mark 23 cannot. But the USP's decocker is much louder when being utilized, because you can capture the hammer on the Mark 23 and let it down slowly. But you cannot engage the safety when it's on double action. Both of these firearms have a relatively easy field stripping. All you have to do is remove the pin right here. This works on both of them. And the slide comes free. All of this is held in by friction, which makes it very easy. But it's standard on most pistols nowadays. Mark 23 is a little bit heavier because it's not broken in just yet, but it works very much the same way. Out comes the pin, and off comes the slide, revealing the guts of the pistol. I noticed the barrel is a lot tighter in this gun, but once again, I believe it's because it's not broken in. After the guns are field stripped, the differences become far more obvious. The Mark 23 is very heavily engineered, even compared to the USP, which has a reputation of being very rugged. The polymer is not only thicker, but it has more metal inserts in the frame. And each insert is made of a heavier material. And the basic mechanics of the pistol are very different on the inside. Here's a look at the difference between the steel frame inserts on the USP and the Mark 23. The Mark 23 is built much heavier, and they are present at the back and at the front. The grip on the Mark 23 is not significantly thicker than the USP Tactical. While it is thicker, it's not enough to really notice. But actually the polymer is built much heavier. The slide on the Mark 23 appears to just be a longer version of the USP, at least at first glance. But if you look more closely, you'll notice it is built much heavier and is actually thicker and is not beveled the same way at the front. It is in fact different. And while the USP has higher suppressor sights, the Mark 23 is actually equipped with a platform for a regular style sight to sit upon, which eliminates the need for a taller sight that can get bent. The inside part of the slides are very similar, and the only real difference is that the Mark 23 is a long slide, whereas the USP is slightly shorter and contains less metal. The barrel of the USP measures just over 5 inches, whereas the Mark 23 measures just under 6. There's not too many differences here, other than the fact that the USP is not chrome lined like the Mark 23, and it doesn't have this step up right here where it gets thicker. They're both polygonally rifled. In fact, it's pretty much the same rifling. The recoil systems on both pistols are more or less the same, but the Mark 23 once again is just built heavier in every area. Reassembling both firearms is identical, and is no different than the takedown, just reverse order. And there you have it. Both of these guns point very naturally. The sight picture of these two guns is very different. The Mark 23 utilizes a military 3-dot setup, whereas the USP uses an adjustable setup. Here's just a few close-ups on the guns. The threads on these guns are the same, they just have opposite thread pitch. USP Tactical is left hand and the Mark 23 is right hand.